Hello everyone, and welcome to Kilimanjaro Safari. Before we begin your trip, please know that the African wildlife reserve has lots of information. You may make use of
That means thank you in Swahili. Jumbo friends, welcome aboard. My name is Grayson. I'm going to be your safari guide out here on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve today. Just a couple of safety reminders before we get started. I do need you to remain seated at all times, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the truck. Hold on tight to any loose articles, including your smaller kiddos. It can get kind of rough and bumpy out here as we are driving on the very real roads of Africa today. So anything you would like to return to the animal kingdom with, I suggest you hold on tight. If you drop anything from the vehicle, we won't be able to stop and pick it up. So please make sure you hold on to whatever you want to return with today. Now if you look up above your heads, you'll see an animal spotting guide. An animal spotting guide is going to help you identify some of the different animals we can see out here today. I can't promise you that we will see everyone you see up there. That would be a pretty crazy safari, but I will certainly try my best. We'll have to see who we can find together. I love this ride too. Anybody's first time out on the safari? Well, I know it's not your first time. Anybody else? Okay, one hand, couple hands. Well, welcome guys. I hope we have a great time out here today. Hopefully we see some fun animals. Alrighty, now it looks like we are ready to head on in. So you guys can just sit back and relax. And here in Harambe, we like to say Twende. Twende means let's go. Now our first stop is the Little Ituri Forest. The forest is home to animals that rely on camouflage for protection. So we can look back behind all of these bushes, this thick vegetation, see who we can find. There are some bongos here on the left-hand side, way back by the tree line. They have a beautiful copper-colored coat. Over on our right, we can also see the okapi walking around. Now that okapi has some black and white stripes on its legs. Many people see those black and white stripes and think it is related to the zebra, but in fact, the okapi is one of the only known relatives of the giraffe. They have very similar skull structures, long, sticky, prehensile tongues. They do also have those little ossicones on top of their heads. Now, if you don't know what ossicones are, they just look like little nubs. If we are lucky enough to see some giraffe later on, I'll do my best to point out those ossicones for you. Up on top of the hill to our right, you can see a kudu, that's a greater kudu, another species of forest antelope. They look kind of similar to the bongo, but they have a much lighter brown colored coat. They're going to share those white stripes with the bongo. Those white stripes will help them blend in really well. You'll notice that a lot of the colors here in the forest are browns and greens, which may seem kind of dull to us, but to the animals it's going to be really helpful in their camouflage process. It'll give them lots of options for places to hide, in the bushes, in the grass, in the dirt, all of the above. As we cross over this watering hole up ahead, we are going to head out of the forest and into the Safi River. Safi River is home to the aquatic animals here on the reserve, so we can look for things like bubbles, ripples, and waves. Any kind of motion that might tell us there are animals nearby. Now I see some feathered friends up ahead, the pink-backed pelicans hanging out over here. They don't really look pink to us. They have white or gray feathers, but their skin is pink, and during mating season it will turn a very vibrant shade of pink. Kind of like how your cheeks will blush when you see your crush. I can also see a Nile hippo swimming around here on our right-hand side too. You can kind of see them down there. Stay seated, guys. Sit down. We are going to keep going a little further down the river, see if we can get another look at some more hippos. They do tend to gather in large groups, big floats, so hopefully we will get to see some more of that family. I see someone swimming around here on the left. Now, hippos do spend most of their time fully submerged. They can actually plug their nostrils closed and push their ears back. This will allow them to even take naps under the water. They can fall asleep naturally and come up for air when their bodies know they need it. They're very hard to track here, but they are right under us. Instead of swimming, the hippos will typically run or walk along the bottom of the riverbank. This is going to help them get to where they're going a little bit more efficiently. As very heavy animals, they cannot float. They will sink right to the bottom of the riverbank. So instead of swimming, they typically use their little legs to run or walk along the bottom of the riverbank. They can kind of push off that way instead of using them to paddle. Now keep your eye out, see if we can find any crocodiles as we cross over this bridge. I don't see any of those long tails right now. I didn't see any, but they are pretty common here in the river. It's a great place for them to populate. Crocodiles are actually known to be pretty incredible parents. The mother especially, she will roll her eggs around in her mouth when those eggs have been laid. It's going to help with the hatching process and keeping those eggs safe from predators. Now our next stop is the Savannah. The Savannah is going to look a little different than the other ecosystems we've gone through already. Now we're not going to see as much of that thick vegetation, but we will see some funky trees like this baobab on our right hand side. That baobab tree is known as the tree of life. It can store thousands of gallons of water in that big tree trunk. So many of the animals here on the Savannah will use that tree as kind of an extra source of hydration. Something else you may notice about the land out here is that it's very wide and open. There's a lot of empty space. Not nearly as much of that thick vegetation we've seen so far. But we will get to see a couple of those iconic African animals, like the Maasai giraffe. Now these tall, skinny trees are great for the giraffes. They can actually feed from the trees, use those prehensile tongues to grab onto all the branches and the leaves. But for other animals that tend to gather in larger groups, maybe smaller animals, it's going to be really hard for them to find places to hide. There isn't a lot of thick foliage or bushes out here. We can't really see these animals hiding behind the trees. So instead of camouflage, most of these animals will rely on things like speed and agility, as well as their herds for protection. On the left-hand side, we can see a couple of African painted dogs back there. Those African painted dogs are very successful predators. They're laying in the shade underneath the tree, so kind of hard to spot, but incredibly successful predators. They have about a 90% success rate. That is typically due to the fact that they hunt in their packs. So going out in pairs or in groups, it's going to be a little more substantial to them. On our left, we'll see a big herd of wildebeest. Also the sable antelope that are in that back corner too. Now the sable antelope are very protective and territorial animals. They're so protective that we actually chose them to be the emblem of our reserve. They represent how protective we are of our own wildlife. They're actually one of the only species of prey known to fight back against their predators. They have those tall, pointy horns on top of their heads that they will use to fight back against their predators and defend their territories. Those wildebeest, on the other hand, their biggest strength is definitely going to be in their numbers. They are the most densely populated mammal on Earth besides humans. So there are more humans than there are wildebeest, but there are more wildebeest than there are any other mammal. spot some Hartman's Mountain Zebra. These iconic black and white stripes are pretty hard to miss. Now even from all the way over here, these zebra probably still can see us. They have excellent eyesight, definitely their strongest sense. Their eyes are located on the sides of their heads as opposed to the tops of their heads, so they can navigate their entire terrain and see everything all at once. Of course, the age-old question is, are those zebra black with white stripes or white with black stripes? The answer actually lies in their nose. If you look at the color of a zebra's nose, that'll tell you their base coat. So those Hartman's Mountain Zebra have black noses, which we classify as being black with white stripes. There are a bunch more giraffe way out there to our right-hand side. They're all kind of back there in the bushes, having lunch, hanging out with the Ankoli cattle. The Ankoli cattle are those brown cows that have the big horns on top of their heads. But a little closer to us here on the right-hand side, we'll get to see this younger giraffe. You can get a good look at his ossicles. And he is keeping a watch over the springbok here. Those springbok are little tiny antelope. They kind of look like deer. They get their name from their ability to spring about 9 to 13 feet into the air from a standstill position. We call this behavior pronking, and they will usually do it when they are frightened or excited. Sometimes the weather or maybe other animals will set them off, so they start jumping around like little pogo sticks. They can also reach a whopping 50 miles an hour when they run, which I always find pretty incredible, almost as fast as the cheetah, those little tiny things. Now I know that those giraffes were pretty big, but I do think we can go bigger. Let's see if we can find any elephants. Actually, it doesn't look like we're gonna have to search too far here. Here on our right-hand side, real big elephant. Over to our left, you can also spot the mandrills as well. They're hanging out together. Now I do think that this is a male elephant here. He appears to be all by himself. I don't see any other elephants in the nearby area. Usually single elephants are going to be the boys. They are much more independent and solitary than the females, so they don't typically hang out with other elephants. The females, on the other hand, they will gather in matriarchal societies. The eldest lady in the family, she's going to help those little elephants grow up. She'll also help the males lead their herds when they reach adulthood. Each elephant comes equipped with a couple helpful tools for them. Their trunks are very long and hang down towards the ground, and they have lots of muscles in those trunks so they can use them for a lot of their daily activities. Their trunks are helpful when it comes to eating and drinking, smelling, touching, and communicating, feeling for their surroundings, navigating their environments, playing games, as well as taking a dust bath. Now, a dust bath is when an elephant will grab dust or dirt in their trunk and throw it up over their heads. That dust will settle onto the elephant's back, and it helps to protect their skin, especially from some of the harsher weather conditions here in Africa. Now, underneath their trunks, you'll find their big pearly white tusks. They will use those tusks to dig and move material around. So we passed through some red clay back there. Now that red clay is a great example of what they will use their tusks for. They will actually dig out that red clay and eat it as a snack. It may not seem very appetizing to us, but to the elephants, it is full of nutrients and minerals that they don't typically find in their natural diets. So it'll provide them with a lot of that goodness, kind of like a multivitamin or even like a supplement would. There is someone walking around here on the left-hand side. Someone else looks to be down there by the watering hole. I can spot a giraffe here on the right-hand side too. Looks like we can see him from the other side. Down here by the water. You can see those trunks and their tusks. They do also have some really large ears. Elephant ears are full of hundreds of blood vessels, so when they flap their ears back and forth, it helps to regulate their body temperatures. Sit down, guys. Face forward for me. Thank you. To our left-hand side, we'll see flamboyance of flamingos. Oh, my bad, y'all. The flamboyance of flamingos. These are the greater flamingos. They can reach about 5 feet tall. When they first hatch, they actually look like little gray fuzzballs. But as they mature, they're going to gain that pink color from a protein in their diet called beta-carotene. Beta-carotene comes from foods like shrimp and krill. Now as we head a little further into the savannah here, I don't think we'll be seeing any more of those elephants. But we can start to look for some rhinos. The savannah here is home to some white rhinos, and it looks like there is a big mud pit out there to our left-hand side. Now those mud pits are a great place for the rhinos to hang out. They can wallow in the mud and coat their skin with it. It does help to protect their skin from some of the harsher weather conditions. It'll kind of act like a sunscreen or a bug repellent for them. It's very similar to the dust bags I was talking about with the elephants. We can spot a couple of cheetahs. They're up there by the tree line. There's one way up by the trees and then another one a little closer, but still kind of in the shade there. I can just barely spot their black spots. Cheetahs are known for being the fastest land mammals. They can reach speeds of about 60 miles an hour. When they first when they have very long tails that curve upwards into a C shape, it's going to help them balance. We can see these on the left a little bit better. There are 2 more down by the tree closest to us. Very gorgeous look there. As the fastest land mammals, they are diurnal, so they hunt during the day. They'll sleep at night, just like we do. A little different than our friends, the lions. Now, as we come around these big rocks on our left, these are called Kobe rocks. This is a great place to look for the lions. They like to hang out around here because it gives them a good vantage point to see their entire terrain. They can kind of keep an eye out on their pride lands. But the lions, on the other hand, they are nocturnal, so they're going to sleep for most of the day. They do spend most of their days taking naps, about 16 to 20 hours of that day to be precise. They will be asleep. But at night, the female will go out and do most of the hunting for the family. We can see a couple of those white rhinos here on the right. I think we'll get a better look once we come around the rocks for sure, but we can kind of see them from the back here. Doesn't look like any of the lions are out and about right now. Oh, I do see the top, the tippy top of her ears down there, right at the bottom. That's a nice shady place for her to hang out down there. Now I did spot the female lion. She didn't have that big fluffy mane around her neck. Only the male lions will have that big fluffy mane, so it's a pretty easy way to tell the difference between the two. On our left, we can see some warthogs. There is one up and walking around, having a snack. Warthogs have little tiny tusks that poke outwards out of their noses. They will use those tusks to dig out the burrows that you see in the rocks. They can actually back into their burrows with their tusks facing outwards, which is going to help them hide from their other animals, their neighbors here on the savannah, like the white rhinos. There's a great look at them here. White rhinos get their name from the Afrikaans word vite, spelled V-I-T, vite. Translates to the word white. I'm sorry, it translates to the word wide. Many people think it means white, since that's what we call them. But it translates to wide, which represents their upper lip. You might have seen it was a very flat upper lip, very wide. That wide upper lip is going to help them bend down and graze the grass. A couple of big birds here on our right hand side as we leave the savannah. These are ostriches. They are hanging out here next to their ostrich nest. Those eggs are pretty large, as these ostriches are the largest birds in the world. Each egg is going to weigh about 3 pounds. That is roughly the same weight as 2 dozen chicken eggs. Now our final stop today is Magadi Glen. This is home of Warden Wilson and the Nigerian dwarf goats. These silly little guys have real big pot bellies that hang low to the ground and make room for their 4-chambered stomachs. In the middle of the yard there is a yellow